When it comes to hockey and sports in general, size is something that everyone focuses on. In the sport of hockey though, there is a little bit of a limit. The average height in the NHL is around 6'1", with the shortest player in the league, Nathan Gerbe, standing in at 5'4", and the tallest being Zdeno Chara at 6'9", who is also the tallest player the league has ever seen. But if you go international, you find Bjorn Randall and Rolly Saarinen, the only two players to play the sport that ever breached over 7 feet tall. Each had short careers in really low-end divisions in Sweden and Finland, but at least they played at a decent competitive level. And then there's one more player that creeps into the mix, and if you've read the title of the video, you already know what's going to happen. Manute Bol, let alone the tallest basketball player of all time, is also technically the tallest hockey player to ever exist. Now, how on earth did this happen? How did Manute Bol get inked to a professional contract in a sport he's never played? Well, let's take a dive into the story and see. To give you a quick rundown on Manute himself, Manute Bol was born into the Dinka tribe back in 1962, a colony in what is now South Sudan, to a 6'8" father and a 6'10" mother. And I'm also just going to add this, Manute's grandfather, who is a Dinka elder, stood an astounding 7'10". 7'10". Manute would end up discovering basketball in his later teens and would dominate in the city leagues before playing collegiate and semi-pro basketball in the States, where he would eventually be selected 31st overall in the 1985 NBA draft to the Washington Bullets, where he would play 3 seasons, and 1 season in particular with 5'3" point guard Muggsy Bogues, the shortest player to ever play in the NBA. It was kind of a publicity stunt, but still, nothing can get over those photos. Those are the best photos almost ever taken. After playing in Washington, he'd split his career amongst the Golden State Warriors, the Philadelphia 76ers, and the Miami Heat, most often playing in a depth role, but arguably, he was more of a ticket seller, because everyone wanted to catch a glimpse of the 7'7" Sudanese giant. He's the only player in NBA history to finish his career with more blocks than points, and actually to my knowledge he still holds one of the 76ers records for most 3.5 of all things, after shooting 6 for 12 beyond the arc against Charles Barkley's Phoenix Suns. Following Bol's basketball career, he would start a heartfelt journey in the fight for South Sudan's independence after returning home and realizing how bad the situation was in his home nation. And after being offered a job as the Minister of Sport for Sudan in 2001, with the obligation that he'd have to convert to Islam, Manute, who was a Christian, left Sudan as a religious refugee and escaped prosecution from the Sudanese government. Manute would end up spending most of his money he made in the NBA helping those in need from his tribe and his country, ultimately leaving him almost penniless. Manute started the Ring True Foundation to continue assisting Sudan refugees to the best of his abilities. He would attend various events to help raise money for his charity, including a celebrity boxing match for his former NFL defensive back William the Refrigerator Perry, which he won in a convincing fashion. Now, we get to the meat of the story and why we're here today, because Manute just didn't box. He also suited up to hit the ice at a CHL game back in 2002 for the Indianapolis Ice. It all starts with general manager of the Ice, Larry Lind, a man who was not afraid to pull the trigger on publicity stunts and eye-grabbing events. And after hearing of Bol's boxing spectacle and learning where he was putting the money he raised from the event, Lind was all in to get Manute onto the ice. Lind said in an interview, "I read an article about Manute and the struggles that he faced since he left the NBA. Something about that article reached out to me." Lind would sign Bol to a 1-day contract to help him expand his horizons with his charity and humanitarian efforts, and to help the Ice gain some notoriety and fans in the building to see the Sudanese giant. Once the news broke out, it was met with skepticism. People thinking Lind trying to make a mockery of the game, or that Bol would kill himself out there and having never worn skates before, let alone skated, maybe even seen ice. But Lind made it clear that he wouldn't be doing this if it were to put the Ice or Manute in any sort of danger. Manute himself even told his skeptical wife at the time, "I will do it. I am the king. I can do it." Bol would make his appearance with the Ice 3 days after the signing of his contract, and no one other than Manute himself was feeling more pressure than the equipment manager, Darren Flincham, who had the fine duty of fitting a 7'7" man into hockey gear. Flincham had little time to create gear for this monolith of a man, so improvisation was necessary. As for the XXXXL jersey he had to make, Flincham initially cut off the bottom quarter of the jersey and had to sew it onto the bottom of another jersey to make it long enough for Manute's freakish frame, and finished it off with fitting number 77 on the back. Flincham was helped out in the skates and stick department, being sent proper fitting attire from some sponsors, but not before he crafted a beast of a stick, consisting of multiple other sticks smushed together to make one monster-sized stick. As for a helmet, Bol actually only needed a regular one. As for shin guards, pants, gloves, everything else was XL gear. The skates were a completely new ordeal though. Bol's size 16.5 feet along with his crippling arthritis made it almost impossible for him to fit his feet into skates without his feet and ankles swelling up profusely. So we were left with a full set of gear minus the skates, and Manute led his team out onto the ice where he watched graciously from the bench. Bol would step onto the ice for a brief moment before vacating back to the bench to watch the game from his front row seat behind the bench and giving his teammates some pointers. An actual funny story from the event was after Ice goaltender Jamie Morris was pulled in the first period after letting in 3 goals, and once he sat on the bench, Manute was there to tell him, "Good job, good job." Morris at that time was actually pretty aggravated of all things and actually almost snapped at Manute, wanting to tell him, "This isn't basketball, there are no subs, I'm not going back out there." Later he warmed up though and was won over along with his teammates by Manute and his heartwarming presence. Manute left the bench after the first period and continued to sign autographs and take photos with the crowd of nearly 5,600 people in attendance. And at the end of the night, Manute was only paid $3,000 for this stunt, but the recognition he garnered from the sports community, showing his devotion for his cause, was something you could not put a price tag on. Bol fought for his people, he fought through financial burden, he fought through his medical troubles. He also went through all of this with a smile on his face, and he was never undetermined. He had a goal in mind, and he did everything in his power to achieve it. In 2010, Manute sadly passed away from acute kidney failure, 1 year before his country of South Sudan actually gained independence as its own nation. His son Bol was also drafted into the NBA in 2019 by the Miami Heat, before being dealt to the Denver Nuggets, where he now battles for minutes as a versatile big man, standing in at 7'2". But in the end, for all that Manute has been through in his life, what he has accomplished on the court, off the court, in the ring, or on the ice is immeasurable. He is a selfless soul who always put his friends and family before himself. I know this may have come off as a little bit of a different video for you guys, but it's a story I wanted to share with you. It's a story I've always loved for years now, from his time in the NBA to what he did with the Indianapolis Ice. Like, it's a story I feel a lot of people can learn from, you know, just from these gracious stories like this, simply because they just put a smile on your face. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys in the next one. See ya.